Philadelphia Eagles defeat the Atlanta Falcons 32-6 out there in Atlanta. Philadelphia gets the first win of the season. An impressive performance by a lot of guys on today. If you look at this Eagle football team, not much expected from this team coming into the 2021 season. But at the end of the day, this team came out and played some big-time footballs on both sides of the ball. I mean, if you look at it early on in this contest, Philadelphia defensively were having some struggles. If you look at it, the first two drives Atlanta had, they went down the first drive. It was a long drive, but they ultimately left with 3 points. They did it again, another long drive, and they also left with 3 points. The Eagles defense held in those particular situations. They were bending and bending and bending, but they didn't break. And ultimately, by not breaking, Philadelphia was able to hold Atlanta from scoring touchdowns and ultimately held in the field goals. And this Eagles offense, I mean, you look at it, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts played a big-time football game today. He was able to use his legs, 62 yards on the ground. Obviously, was able to use his arm, 27 for 35, 264 yards, and 3 touchdowns. You look at this team. Last season, Philadelphia coming into the year had a lot of issues on that offensive line. The offensive line was a problem spot for this team last season. They had a lot of injuries. Now they have a seemingly healthy offensive line. They got a lot of playmakers. They got a lot of guys with speed. They got a lot of speed guys. Quez Watkins has speed. Jalen Rager has some speed, right? They got a lot of speed on that offense, and that offense it seems like, could be dynamic. And it's only one game. Let's say it stopped right now. It's only one game. One thing we know about the NFL, it is a week-to-week league. So 1 week you can look like world beaters. The next week you can look like hot garbage. That's the nature of the National Football League. It's a week-to-week game. It's a week-to-week league. And so, yes, Philadelphia looked good on both sides of the ball, especially that defense. I was thinking, okay, early on, Atlanta was having success on the ground with Cordell Patterson. Atlanta was able to move the ball effectively going up and down the field. And I'm saying to myself, wow, this defense might be a struggle area for this football team this season. But then, again, after those 2 drives, and if you look at those 2 drives that the Atlanta Falcons had early on, it's the only points they scored was in the first half. They scored one field goal in the first quarter, scored a field goal in the second quarter. But you look at it, they started out, their first drive, you look at Atlanta's first drive and how it went, it was a 14-play, 72-yard drive. But it ended in a field goal. That's what you want. You want field goals. You want Atlanta to kick field goals. You want any team to kick field goals. You want a team to kick field goals. That's what you keep them out of the end zone. And Philadelphia and their defense did a great job. Atlanta's first drive, 72-yard drive, it ended in 3 points, right? And then they did it again. Philadelphia scored a touchdown. Atlanta came back with another drive of 74 yards, ended in 3 points. But again, the goal is you can let the teams have as many yards as you want. If you keep them out of the end zone, you're doing your job. And that's what Philadelphia did in this particular game. After that, they stepped it up. After that, defensively, they stepped up. Matty Ice, you thought this team was going to have a big-time performance in a big-time game. It didn't happen. After that, it was it was a struggle for Atlanta. Matt Ryan ended up the game 21 for 3,564 yards, no touchdowns. Kept him out of the end zone, no touchdowns. And so give Philadelphia a lot of credit. Give Nick Sirianni a lot of credit. Give Jonathan Gannon a lot of credit. Give this Eagle defense and this Eagle football team a lot of credit going into Atlanta and getting the victory. Look, I'm not saying Atlanta's going to be a big-time football team. Obviously, this is a team that looks like they're not going to be very good this year. But guess what? It's only the first game, and so much can happen. So much can happen in the NFL. So many things could change. Like I said, you could be bad 1 week, great the next. That's just the nature of this game. So you look at this now, and again, I'm impressed by a lot of things. First of all, Jalen Hurts. I'm start there. A guy, he was effectively able to get the ball, move the ball around, got his wide receivers involved. Devontae Smith got his first touchdown, a beautiful strike by Jalen Hurts to Devontae Smith. Got a little bit of a rub there that got him open, but hey, it worked. It wasn't called, and it ended up with a touchdown. So that was impressive. And also, you look at also Jalen Hurts. There was one moment where he had Zach Ertz in that long pass, and it was trapped, but ultimately was called a catch. But if you look at that particular play, if he would have threw that ball and Ertz, if that ball was better thrown, Ertz may have scored or got much more yard. He still could be running, actually. So that was early in the game. But again, Jalen Hurts, for the most part, everything was superb. He was stellar. He got the ball to his wide receivers. He got the balls to his tight ends. And look, he did his job. 77% completion percentage. He did his job today. But you got to look at it this way. You say, well, 77% completion percentage, that's pretty good. Yes, it is pretty. But also a lot of short passes by Nick Sirianni in this game. A lot of short passes, whether it was Quez Watkins, whether it was a Jalen Reagor. You show a lot of short stuff. Miles Sanders out of the backfield. A lot of short stuff by Nicky Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles offense. But it was short, but it was effective. It was ultimately effective. Look, at this point, you look at the NFC East, and the NFC East is a very winnable division. You look at it from this standpoint. You got Washington football team, questions at the quarterback position. You got the New York Giants, questions at the quarterback position. You got the Philadelphia Eagles, yes, questions at the quarterback position. And you got the Dallas Cowboys, questions at the quarterback position. And I will say Dak Prescott, after the way he looked at Tampa Bay, may have answered those questions, but at the same time, there's still questions because he's coming off a major injury. So there are questions with each and every one of these teams in the NFC East. So the NFC East is a very winnable division. It's a very winnable division for Philadelphia. It's a very winnable division for anybody in that division. It's very winnable. Who knows who's going to step up and win this division? Because, again, there's so many questions about all these teams. So many questions. But so far, Philadelphia, after week one, has answered that question to a degree. To a degree. Obviously, they got 16 more questions coming up, and we'll see if they have. They're obviously not going to have 16 more answers. They're not. And there's going to be bad moments throughout the course of this season. There are going to be some good moments, too, throughout the course of the season. But one thing I'll say about this football team, they're going to be exciting. I think they're going to be fun to watch. Whether they're good, bad, or what have you, I think they're going to be fun to watch because of the skilled players, because of Jalen Hurts and his running ability. And also, I think offensively, they're going to be effective. I think they're going to be effective because of that offensive line. That offensive line, if you look at it, Mailata got that big-time contract yesterday. He's looking big time. Lane Johnson, he's looking big time. The list goes on and on. Brandon Brooks, Jason Kelsey. All these guys are looking like big-time players on the offensive line. And if they can stay healthy, on the offensive line, look out. Look out. Hurts had time today. He had time to distribute that football to his skill players. And I say this. I look at this team. You look at Reagor, you look at Smith, you look at Watkins, you look at their top three wideouts. And I say to myself, okay, if one of these guys steps up to the forefront, they'll be okay. One of these guys, right? If one of these guys are solid, they'll be okay. Now, which one of these guys are going to be solid? After week one, it seems like, Devontae Smith could be that guy. He came out of Alabama. I wasn't high on the pick, but they made the pick, and I'm supporting the pick from the standpoint that what we saw today, Devontae Smith, and it's only one football game. It's a lot of football games to be played, but Devontae Smith, big-time route running, a guy who's we saw there on that great, that touchdown pass. He's able to run some decent routes. Got open today on that one drive. He caught, I think, 3-4 passes in that one drive. Finished the game up 6 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown. So he played solid football, And for a rookie, obviously, it's a good situation. He's a rookie, his first NFL game, and he paid dividends. I mean, a big performance by him. And of course, Jalen Hurts. I can't just stop speaking so highly of the guy because, again, here's what you want out of your quarterback. You want a guy who's not going to turn the football over. He didn't do that today. You also want a guy that's able to get the ball in the hands of your skill player. He did that today. You want a guy, again, with his running ability that can turn some garbage into gold. He did that a couple of times as well today. So all in all, a big-time performance from Jalen Hurts. Let's go to defense. I mean, this defense played some big-time football as well. They got after Matt Ryan. You know, they were able to get after him, able to sack him 3 times, but they were in his face. They did a good job of getting in his face and making it uncomfortable for Matty Ice at times. Again, the way it started, you wouldn't think that was going to be the case with this team. You didn't think that they were going to be able to do the things that they did on the defensive end, but they did it. They did it. You thought, okay, Atlanta's going to be able to move this ball up and down the field on this football team, and this was going to be a shootout. It started out that way. Okay, this might be a shootout. We're looking at this game early and thinking we could have a shootout here in the ATL. But over time, the Eagles defense and Atlanta's defense started to play a little better, but ultimately the Eagles defense was big time. And they did some big time things today. And again, you keep a team out of the end zone, your job is done. You can give up any amount of yards you want. At the end of the day, you keep the goal of any defense, the goal of any team is to keep you out of the end zone. The goal of the defense is to keep you out of the end zone. You can kick field goals for days. But if you're not scoring touchdowns, if it doesn't equate to touchdowns, it doesn't matter. And that's what the Philadelphia Eagles did defensively. They stopped the Atlanta Falcons from getting into the end zone. And so, in terms of that, week 1 in the books, Philadelphia's defense, you got to give them a gold star for what they did today and their ability to keep Matty Ice and this Atlanta Falcon offense out of the end zone. Again, didn't allow any points in that second half. No points in the second half. None. No points in the second half for the Atlanta Falcons. None. So that's a credit to Jonathan Gannon in that defense. None. No points. None. Kept them out of the end zone. They bent a little bit, but ultimately they didn't break. And that's going to be huge and key for this team going forward. You saw that, and Atlanta had some ability running the football, and they did let Atlanta did do decent on the ground, 124 yards on the ground. So that's something they're going to have to address as they go forward. Obviously, you want to do a better job in terms of the running game. But all in all, a successful debut for Nick Sirianni. All in all, a successful debut for Jalen Hurts. All in all, a successful debut for this Eagles defense. And all in all, they get the victory 32-6 in Atlanta. We have 29-6 up there on the screen there, but it is 32-6. Atlanta loses to the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Philadelphia Eagles start the season at 1-0. Now, and they keep this momentum going. Obviously, you want to keep this thing going, and they play the 49ers next week. At home opener, but it's the San Francisco 49ers who I think is going to be a very good football team. I actually have the San Francisco 49ers going to the Super Bowl this year. I think they're going to be a very, very good football team this particular season. So that's going to be a tough one for the Eagles. It's going to be tough to beat the 49ers. That won't be easy. That will be tough. That will be a tough one for the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the San Francisco 49ers. That's not going to be easy. So we'll see what they do and how they come back. home opener, obviously at Lincoln Financial Field. That crowd is going to be pumped up. They're going to be excited, especially the Eagles coming off a victory in their in the season opener, against the Falcons. So that crowd is going to be pumped up. That crowd is going to be excited, and that crowd is going to be ready to go in Philadelphia as their team went into Atlanta and got the victory and got it done. We could talk about the play of the offensive line because they did a good job on the ground as well. I mean, Miles Sanders had some nice runs. He ended the game with 74 yards. Kenneth Gainwell had a touchdown. He had 37 yards. And then Jalen Hurts, 62 yards. So they had 173 yards on the ground. So all those things, that's the recipe for success. 173 yards on the ground, a recipe for success. And that always, the biggest and the best friend for a young quarterback is a running game. And so the Philadelphia Eagles, that offensive line, it's going to be big time. If they stay healthy, that offensive line it's going to be one of the strengths of this football team. You look at the Eagles in terms of the trenches on the defensive line and the offensive line. Those two things are the strengths of that football team. Defensive line is a strength. Hargraves and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. You saw Josh Sweat getting after the quarterback. Ridgeway had 2 sacks today. So the defensive line is going to be one of the strengths for this Eagles team, and that offensive line is also going to be a strength. So the trenches is where the game is won. And if you look at the trenches for the Philadelphia Eagles, they have on both sides of the ball a very good offensive line and a very good defensive line. So that's going to serve this football team well as they go forward if it can stay healthy. And the problem last year with the offensive line was health. Health was a big reason why this offensive line and this team struggled. And granted, Carson Wentz was not very good last year. He wasn't. But that offensive line wasn't that good either. And that offensive line wasn't great. And the Philadelphia Eagles had some issues with that offensive line all of last season. That seems to have been fixed. They got that fixed at this point. And so with that fixed, you can obviously do a lot of things, and you can obviously have a better offense when you fix the offensive line, when you fix the trenches. And the Philadelphia Eagles have fixed the trenches. And the back half, another struggle for this team was the back half of their defense, the secondary. Nelson Island, Stevie Nelson is here. That seems to help. Big play Slay is still here. Darius Slay. That helps, obviously. So you look at this Eagles team, all in all, big-time performance by everybody. Can't crown them. I'm not crowning them. It's only one game. No, you can't crown them after one game. But what you can say is that this team seems to be improved from last season, seems to be better than last season. Here's the reality of the situation. Jalen Hurts had a big-time performance here today, but it could all change as the season goes on. He could struggle as the season goes on, and then the Philadelphia Eagles are in the market for another quarterback. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. This is an audition for Jalen Hurts. He only has this year to figure out whether or not, and the Eagles have to figure it out whether or not he is the guy going forward for them. He is the guy to be their franchise caliber quarterback, to be their franchise quarterback. If he's not, obviously Philadelphia, if he doesn't play well, obviously Philadelphia is not going to have a good record. Obviously they're going to struggle, and obviously they're going to be in a position where they can draft another quarterback to hopefully be that quarterback of the future. So obviously I'm moving a little bit ahead of myself because there's a lot of football to be played and a lot of football left to go. But after week 1, and this is just strictly after week 1, gold star to Jalen Hurts, gold star to the defense, gold star to Devontae Smith, and again, gold star to this football team as they beat the Atlanta Falcons 32-6. All right, so make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you support all the great things going on here on this YouTube channel and everywhere else. See you later. Take care. Bye. Philadelphia wins 32-6.